The trading post on Zarian 7 was supposed to be neutral ground. Oscar had learned that much in his 3 months working as Julia's assistant on this forsaken mining colony at the edge of civilized space. What he hadn't learned, until today, was exactly why everyone gave Julia such a wide berth despite her gentle demeanor and kind smile. Oscar watched as the Krellian merchant, a hulking creature, with scales like armor plates and teeth designed for tarring, slammed his massive fist on the counter. Julia didn't flinch, but Oscar saw the slight tightening around her eyes. "You cheat me, human," the Krellian roared, his translator crackling with static. "This ore is impure. You promised greater iridium." Julia's voice remained steady, measured. "The ASA report is right here. The ore meets all contracted specifications. If you'd like to dispute it, we can. I dispute you." Vexter leaned forward menacingly. "Stupid human female. Your kind always lie. Maybe I teach you respect." Oscar's hand instinctively moved toward the plasma pistol at his hip, but Julia caught his eye and gave the slightest shake of her head. Her expression hadn't changed, still professional, still calm, but something in the air had shifted. "Vexter," Julia said quietly, "I think we're done here. Please leave." The Krellian laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Done. We done when I say done, meet." His clawed hand shot across the counter, gripping Julia's wrist. "Maybe you give discount. Maybe you give more than discount." He never finished the sentence. The door to the back room slid open with a whisper, and Oscar felt his blood turn to ice. She was small, barely 4 feet tall, with the same auburn hair as Julia, worn in 2 neat braids. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old by human standards, but Oscar had learned enough about humans in his short time here to recognize the look on the child's face, a peculiar combination of sadness and inevitability that no child should possess. "You upset Mama," the girl said gently, her voice carrying the careful enunciation of someone choosing their words with precision. Vexter turned, still gripping Julia's wrist, his expression caught between confusion and amusement. "What is this? Human spawn?" He laughed again. "Go away. Little I know 47 ways to fix that." The girl continued in that same eerily gentle tone, taking one small step forward. "None include you breathing." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Oscar had heard stories, whispered legends about old Earth, about what humans had been before they reached the stars, about the death world that had forged them, the millions of years of evolution as apex predators, the terrible creativity they applied to survival and warfare. He'd dismissed most of it as propaganda, as the ghost stories other species told themselves to explain humanity's rapid expansion through the galaxy. He wasn't dismissing anything anymore. "Emmy, sweetness, it's okay," Julia said softly, but there was a tremor in her voice now. Not fear of Vexter, fear for him. The Krellian, however, was either too stupid or too arrogant to read the room. "Stupid cub threatens me." "Me." He released Julia's wrist and took a step toward Emmy, looming over her like a mountain of scales and muscle. "I could crush you with one." Emmy moved. Oscar would never be able to fully describe what happened next. The girl didn't disappear exactly. She was visible the entire time, but his brain couldn't process the speed, the fluid efficiency, the absolute economy of motion. One moment she was standing still, the next, she was in the air, her small foot connected with Vexter's knee with a crack that echoed through the trading post. The Krellian howled and stumbled. Emmy landed, pivoted, and drove her palm reinforced with something Oscar couldn't identify into a nerve cluster, just below Vexter's third rib. The massive alien's roar cut off into a wheeze. She grabbed his arm, the same arm that had grabbed Julie, and did something with his elbow that made Oscar wince in sympathy. "That's 3 ways," Emmy said conversationally as Vexter collapsed to one knee. "Would you like to see the other Emmy Marie Carter, that is Enough. Julia's voice cracked like a whip, and Emmy froze instantly, stepping back with her hands at her sides. The feral intensity drained from her face, replaced by a child's chagrin. "Sorry, Mama," she mumbled. Looking at her feet, Vexter was clutching his arm, his breathing labored, his eyes wide with something Oscar recognized, primal fear. The same fear a prey animal feels when it realizes it's been cornered by something higher on the food chain. "Get out," Julia said coldly. "Tell your friends what happened here. Tell them what happens when you threaten a human mother in front of her child, and tell them the next person who tries it won't get a warning." The Krellian scrambled to his feet and fled, his dignity abandoned at the door. For a long moment, silence filled the trading post. Then Julia sighed and knelt down, opening her arms. Emmy rushed into them, suddenly just a little girl again, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. "You promised you'd be careful," Julia murmured. Stroking her daughter's hair. He hurt you, Mama. He grabbed you. I know, baby. I know. Julia looked up at Oscar, who was still frozen in shock. Oscar, this is my daughter, Emmy. Emmy, this is Oscar. He's been helping out while you were at camp. Hi, Emmy said, peeking out from her mother's embrace with a shy smile that showed missing front teeth. Sorry you had to see that. I'm usually better at controlling my temper. Mama's been teaching me. Oscar found his voice. Your daughter is ... trained, Julia supplied. She stood, keeping one hand on Emmy's shoulder. Yes, all human children in the frontier colonies have to be. The galaxy isn't always kind to humans, Oscar, especially human women and children. We learned to adapt. Mama used to be a Marine, Emmy added proudly. She taught me everything, but I'm not as good as her yet. Mama knows 217 ways. Julia's smile was fond but sad. I've only had to use 4 of them since we moved here. I'd like to keep it that way. Oscar swallowed hard, looking at Julia with new eyes. The gentle trader who had hired him, who always had a kind word and a fair deal, who baked cookies for the local kids, who was also, apparently, capable of killing in more ways than he could count. The other species, he said slowly, they don't know, do they? Not really. They know enough to leave us alone, Julia said. That's all we want, Oscar. To live in peace, raise our children, do honest work. But if someone threatens that peace, she looked down at her daughter, whose innocent face belied the warrior underneath. Well, they'll learn why Earth is considered a death world, and why you never ever upset a human mama. Emmy hugged her mother tighter, and Julia kissed the top of her head. Outside, the twin suns of Zarian 7 set in tandem, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. The trading post was quiet again, peaceful. And Oscar finally understood why.